Hi, this is Matt Finch, and this is the last substantive video in the series that I'm doing about the Wizards of the Coast open game license. There may be other videos added after these core ones, but they'll mainly probably be clarifying and talking about questions and answers. But this video and the preceding ones are the sort of the core of compliance with the OGL, at least in its simplest form, for the beginner. I want to talk about what this legal compliance is going to look like in your gaming resource. Normally it's all put at the end in a legal appendix. It doesn't have to be at the end. Traditionally that's where it's put, and it gets it out of the way of the reader who's really only interested in the gaming content. So this is all extraneous to 99% of the people who look at it. So most people started off with a title of legal appendix, and then the next thing that they will do is the notice of open game content. Usually that's a header. That's the piece that's required by Section 2, and it's really just going to be one sentence. It's going to be something along the lines of, this product includes open game content that may only be used under and in terms of the open game license version, and then you put the version number. For a very long time, the version's been stuck at 1.0a, but with 5th edition D&D, Wizards of the Coast has actually released some subsequent license numbers that can be used, so just make sure that you've got the right one. After that notice of open game content, the next header that you're going to have in there is probably going to be identification of open game content. Not notice of it, identification of it. This is the part where you've got the requirement from Section 8 that you clearly identify the open game content that's there in the piece. And so this is where you describe that. It has to be clear. It can be done by a formula, or it can be done by segmenting out particular chapters that are entirely open game content. One good comment we had in the sections for the earlier videos is that this can also be done with layout. So for example, you could put boxes around the open game content that you're including, and this is where you would say, hey, the stuff in boxes is the open game content. I think a lot of people haven't done that historically for a couple of reasons. Number one, it kind of uses up some of your layout, some of the tools in your layout toolkit, and then you can't use box text because it's going to look like it's open game content. So it can get a little bit in the way doing it that way, but it's perfectly valid. The requirement is that it's got to be clear. Next, you may have a heading called Definition of Product Identity. As we've talked about in the earlier videos, just as we've talked about open game content in the earlier videos, there is a danger to doing this. You must be very clear that this is including but not limited to, or else you are creating a situation in which it can be read to say that only the things in this little section are product identity, and in general you want to leave product identity open-ended. So you're gonna want to have that caveat, but this is where you sort of make clear to somebody who might be using your piece but is not really familiar with the OGL. You're being entirely clear. Look, my company logo is my product identity. These maps are product identity. They might not be, but it's a good example of something that's often left as product identity. The art, most artists are not giving you, if you've used an artist to help you out and it's not your art, most artists are not intending that their work is going to be released into open game content. They may have, but if you didn't specifically talk to them about it, don't do it. Make sure that that you don't somehow accidentally release their art into open game content. So after the heading for product identity now, so you have either 2 or 3 settings, depending 2 or 3 headings, depending on whether or not you did something about product identity. The next thing that's going to go in there is the copy of the open game license, and so just cut and paste everything that's in the open game license, beginning with the capital letters open game license and ending with the capital letters end of license. Copy and paste that. Now you do still need to add, since Section 15 is sort of like that chain of title, the chain of copyright, you need to add into that Section 15 all of the open game content sources that you've used, which again you should be able to just copy directly from their Section 15. And then again, don't forget at the end of it, your title and copyright information need to appear, or else the next time someone copies and pastes, they'll be leaving you out. So make sure that your own information is included at the end there. That, I think, pretty much lists it all. It's worth reminding people again, if you were writing your resource using a rule book rather than the SRD, you have a major responsibility now to go through and make sure that you haven't included anything that was not in the SRD. So that's a big inconvenience there, but you don't want to have a situation where you've got rulebook information showing up in your open game content work. It's a mistake a lot of people make. It can be hard to check for, but you know, it's something that you definitely want to cast an eye over what you've done and make sure that you don't have things like you know, beholders showing up in there, or you know, the names of Greyhawk deities or things like that. You know, the word Bigby shouldn't be showing up in there. All of the stuff that's been reserved and left out of open game content by Wizards of the Coast. And that is where we're going to go ahead and leave it on this series. I welcome any questions put in the comments. Cannot guarantee that I'll answer them, because if they are something that would be considered legal advice, that's not something that I can give. If it's a question that has a general knowledge sort of answer to it, I'll try and put that in there. And eventually, if we have enough various questions, we may add a couple of clarifying videos to the series after this one. But for now, thank you so much for listening, and imagine the hell out of it.